Sights and sounds of Ayetoro, a coastal community in the larger local government area of Ondo State. Head to head, houses are overlooking the Atlantic in such proximity that appears worrisome, and this has been occasioned by the continuous pounding of sea waves directly on the houses and inhabitants. The result is clear and evident. Houses stripped to bare bones, electricity pole standing in isolation, and in response, emergency sandbags are being piled and deployed. But there's how much that can help to push back the rampaging sea encroachment. It's a decade-long torment which has progressed to a devastating proportion, leading to the loss of homes and property.
It dey affect us well. As I dey here, so not be my house. It does scatter my house. It's my friend. My friend now help me. Come stay here. Say make I come stay here. Me and manager. As I dey here, so I not see anything. When I feel say this one na my property. See, don't carry everything go. So me, I beg government. Me they help us. Can't do the embankment. Any help where government feel help for us to do for us, may they can't do it.
Danger appear lurking around the coast, and members of this community, the young and the old, are not taking it with a wave off, as demonstrated here. It's also interesting to note that a larger local government area is an oil-bearing community and therefore a revenue-contributing area to the federal coffers, which suggests the call on one of the placards for NDDC's intervention, among other appeals.
Our properties are being destroyed, lives are threatened on a daily basis. Here and now we keep crying onto the government to come to our rescue and our aid. Up to today, we have not seen a concrete or reasonable move to show that they are ready to salvage this land.
The residents tell us more as regards promises made in the past by government but not kept.
Alerted the state government and other bodies, NDDC, Usupadek and the other bodies. They came, they saw the encroachment. They made promises and contracts were awarded over 10 years ago. Up till now, nothing has been done.
A shoreline protection is clearly needed as buffer. The traditional ruler of Ayetoro wants government to either construct an embankment or embark on a land reclamation to address the sea incursion.
We use this medium to make passionate and desperate appeal to the state government, to the federal and even international community. Embankment can stop the sea, reclamation can stop the sea. Any of this will save this land.
Ayetoro is in focus for what may be the impact of changing climate. How authorities therefore will react to this and the urgency applied would no doubt be soothing to already tensed nerves of these people.
And with that, we begin Sunrise Daily this morning. I'm Ayamakine. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning from Abuja. I'm Maokpe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, most certainly, this is definitely disconcerting. And, you know, it brings a lot of questions to my own mind. Has it happened before? Certainly. I would recall, anyone who knew Lagos back in time would recall the onslaught of the Bar Beach on the very nearby community of Victoria Island and the rest of it. And how that even now, not only has that become a thing of the past, there's a large reclaimed area, in that axis now. So many people know what can be done with that one, and that was achieved by the Lagos State government or in partnership with the federal government. What concerns people is that they are safe and their lives and property are secure as well. Elijah is just one of several riverine communities in Nigeria, and this is perhaps a pointer to what ought to be done in several other communities. As you listened in that report, the people are pointing at quite a number of layered agencies of government and all of that. We have the Federal Ministry of the Environment, who ought to be able to do a thing or two. We have, they have also mentioned the Niger Delta Development Commission, because, Ondo State is an oil-producing area. We have the state government there. And I don't even think there is an effective local government. I don't know, please, I stand to be corrected. If there is an effective local government administration in the area that should have been able to champion the causes of these people. As you heard the monarch say there, they've been at this for more than 10 years, and efforts have been made, yet no action, no significant action has been taken to raise the lifestyle of the people. Are these people helpless and at the mercy of who? That's a question. Marwe.
It's a very big question, Ayo. I really worry for the people of Ayetoro. The visuals on the screen are really very disturbing. And I think that, anybody who knows how we work as a government and as a people, we know that we're very slow to respond. Ideally, when the encroachment initially started, don't forget that now the traditional ruler is saying that a contract was awarded 10 years ago. So the encroachment did not start today. The visuals that we're seeing is what has happened as a result of the neglect, excuse me, the further neglect of what ought to have been done at least 10 years ago. But be that as it may, this is where we are today. So I'm asking myself, when a stitch in time didn't save 9, and we now have a really big hole, is it what we're going to do now that, is going to save the day? Do we have the will to be able to do that? Do the resources? We know that building an embankment to save such a community is going to be a lot of money. But the Ayetoro people have justified it, saying, for God's sake, we're an oil-producing community. We are, a part of the community that lays the golden goose, that lays the golden egg. And as such, we should not be ignored. Don't forget that we also have what we call an ecological fund. And if we lose such a vital portion of such a vital community, let's not forget that Nigeria also loses part of its own land. We went to The Hague over a portion of land in Bakassi. Now we have one right, at our nose here, and we're not doing much about it. We're not doing much to reclaim that land and save it. Oftentimes, people do things for an interest. I want to believe that the fact that this community is an oil-producing one, yes, oil is fast losing, attention now. But for now, it's still, it's still where we get a lot of the resources that we use to run this country from. And if that is the case, then these people should not be allowed to lose their ancestral home. Much as I have my own misgivings as to, how quickly that is going to happen, I think that these reasons are justifiable enough for whatever government agency needs to swing into action, There's the ecological fund from there, which something can be done from. There's a 13% derivation, which accrues to the state and, by extension, the community as well. There's a Niger Delta Development Commission, which should also pay some attention to these people. So it's not for lack of agencies or lack of bodies to look at the problem. I believe that what we need to summon now is the willpower. Don't forget that if we lose this portion of land, Nigeria also loses a part of her territory to the sea. And I don't think that, that is right. Let us think of what is going to happen in terms of displacement, in terms of people losing their heritage, not having their own ancestral land, what displacement what it could mean to that state as a result of this. Livelihoods, lives are also at risk, property, things that people have saved years for. I don't know, I hate to imagine it, but this is what we're looking at right before our very eyes. And I'm hoping that we will eventually tell the people of Ayetoro that there is indeed a government, that they have not they have not cried out for nothing. Ayo.
Well, what concerns me the most is the latter part of what you have talked about, which is the people. Because ultimately it is about the people. It's about the lives and the livelihood of people. And if governments at various levels claim to be responsive, let's just wait what happens in the next few days and see the value that we place on the lives of our people. Let's go straight into the papers now. We begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And this is how the paper opens. Persecuted at home, Igbo Muslims troop to north for succor. What does that mean? You find the details of that on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. More in north at present than in entire southeast. Marginalized in civil service, political appointments. Many practice Islam secretly. There are no discriminations, Imo Enugu governments say. Find the details on the inside pages of the paper this morning. And right under that one, Atiku to governors convene National Unity Summit. That story is on page 10 of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And right under the nameplate, shun antagonism, Jonathan tells northern governors. Right beside that one, planned $250 million funding for national carrier unsettles operators. That story you find on the inside page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Okay.
Let's look at The Guardian for you. You have this 120 billion naira petrol subsidy to double as CBN adjusts exchange rate. Okay, so that's right on the front page. Nigeria losing 73.6 billion naira monthly to high consumption claims despite work from home practice. The subsidy difficult to police poses major corruption risk, says LCCI. Deregulation a hard choice amid inflation, pandemic, electricity tariff hike. That's from ProShare. So you might want to, take a look at that story. 120 billion naira petrol subsidy to double. Imagine that figure doubling. That's 240 billion naira we're paying on subsidy. Subsidies which were allegedly scrapped and not provided for in the 2021 budget. You have to ask, where are we getting the funds to fund this? Don't forget that NNPC is saying, look, this is not sustainable. And I think at some point they said they had nothing to remit to the Federation account. So somehow, one way or another, we're paying for it. If we're not going to pay for it directly from our pockets, which a lot of Nigerians will definitely cry foul at this time, I will. But at the same time, the choices don't look very pretty. It's a page 2 read for you on the front page of The Guardian. And look at this. World Hypertension Day. Excuse me. 76.2 million Nigerians are hypertensive, but only 23 million on treatment. Yeah, it's a silent killer. I think today is a good day as any to check your blood pressure and see how it's going, especially in light of the headlines. Look at this. How hypertension, heart diseases fuel COVID-19 deaths by NHF. NMA says poverty, anxiety raise risk of hypertension. And yes, we've had a lot to be anxious about in recent times. Normal blood pressure is 120 over 80 mmHg, but 140 over 90 mmHg in Nigeria. So it will seem that we have a new normal in our country. NHS decries high rates, urges Nigerians to go for checkup. So if you haven't checked your blood pressure before and you're 18 and above, by all means, do check your blood pressure. IBB seeks Nigerian support for federal government to end insecurity. Look at this one. Rivers in total danger. Amici cries out. You might want to know what the danger is about. It's a page 3 read for you there. Police arrest suspected attacker of Correctional Service Center in Owerri. That's also on the front page of The Guardian. But I'll leave it there. Let's not give you more to raise your blood pressure. It's World Hypertension Day. Have you checked your BP, Ayo?
Well, Markwa, you sincerely don't want to know what I read last week, Monday, and what I read on Saturday. Sincerely, you don't want to know, so don't even go there. but it's a very, I mean, it was very alarming on Monday when I spoke with my doctor, and by, on Saturday, it was equally alarming because it was on the one hand too high, on the other hand too low. So where do I stand? But that's the plight of so many people. We go around our daily lives without even knowing how serious this thing is. Once you begin to have a headache that you can't explain, and you've taken medications and you don't know, what's going on, seek medical help immediately, because it could be as a result of high blood pressure. But that new normal, please, I do not subscribe to it. The Nigerian Tribune this month leads with this one: provide and train soldiers with modern weapons, IBB tells FG. And that story is on page 3. And who backs it up? The NEF says, don't ignore his advice. NEF urges FG. Find that story on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And right on above the nameplate, why FG isn't keen on new revenue formula. That's a business analysis on page 6 of the paper. Total blackout in Kaduna as labor unions begin strike. That story is on page 5 of, page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And right under the picture you see there of that sad issue happening in an Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Southern Houses of Assembly speakers back Southern governors. Page 23 has that one. Wants governors to send bill to National Assembly for action. I also hope that the State Houses of Assembly will speak as vocally for local government, effective and functional local government administration, as suggested by the President of the Senate. Article to governors: convene national summit to save Nigeria. Don't wait for FG. That story is on page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And one of the stories you see right under the nameplate: Sub-Saharan Africa, most expensive region to send money. That's on page 20, and it's ascribed to the World Bank. Find the details on the inside pages. Mark.
Well, let's look at the Vanguard for you, and you see on the front page there, insecurity, military needs new weapons training. That's what they also have on the front page, like Nigerian Tribune did. That's from IBB. They have a number of riders to that particular story, though. He says he advises federal government but doesn't make noise about it. Yeah, people are wondering, why are we just hearing your voice? Well, you hear the response here. Says he advises federal government but doesn't make noise about it. IBB wasting his time advising Buhari. That's according to Afenifere. We're behind IBB on this. That's from ACF, that's the Arewa Consultative Forum. No amount of weapons without review of security infrastructure can resolve insecurity. From Ohaneze. IBB's call, good but not new. That's from CAN. And don't ignore IBB. NEF, that's Northern Elders Forum. You might want to see all the details on page 5 of the paper. Look at this. Inflation, money supply rises 22.5% to 38 trillion naira. Current accounts deposits rise 50%. Currency outside banks rises 23%. Analysts project 18.84% inflation for April. So it looks like money supply has gone up, and as a result, we could be seeing inflation figures also rising as a result of that. Look at the bottom there. Africa students were never sexually molested by bandits. That's coming from the parents. A lot of people were worried about that, especially when you look at the state in which the ladies were abducted from their hostels, tying nothing but a wrapper for the night. They were prepared for bed, and then you find them, being kept by bandits for how long? For over 40 days. It is very worrisome. A lot of people had fears and worries, but if this would calm you down, then let's take the story. It says Africa students were never sexually molested by bandits. I think that's That's really the situation, and we need to thank God for that. It's a page 9 read. Insecurity. Stop waiting for federal government. Convene National Unity Forum to save Nigeria. Atiku tells governors. Look at this. Yeah, that was from his Twitter handle yesterday. The former vice president writing to Nigeria governors to say, you know what? You don't have to wait to see the president. Form a unity forum and do what you need to do. You also see this: U.S. frowns on religious intolerance, insecurity in Nigeria. 1,603 Nigerians killed within Q1 of 2020 report. And you have a number of stories on top of the nameplate, which I'll leave you to do yourself. But look at this. Tijaniya Sheikhs affirm Sanusi as leader in Nigeria. So it's an Islamic sect. And they now have former emir of Kano, Lamido Sanusi, as their new leader. Because of Ayo's BP, I'd like to do Mr. and Mrs., but maybe, I don't know whether this one's going to reduce his BP now, but let us see. This is a jealous Mr. here, or yeah, a jealous Mr. Happy Mrs. Let me leave it. It's going to raise Ayo's BP. I don't want to make him unhappy this morning. But look at the back page. Eyimba crashed the pyramids in Egypt. They say it's a shocker. How did that happen? You might want to read the back page of Vanguard newspapers. Let's leave it there for Vanguard.
Well, to prove to you that I'm completely in the safe zone, I'm going to take that Mr. and Mrs. for you. So Mr. Speaking from off stage, so to speak, says to Mrs., the man is a member of the board of directors. He smiled at you and gave you an envelope filled with money. Are you sure it's not a Greek gift? And Mrs. responding with a smile, Greek? No, it's American. The envelope contains American dollars. So there you have it. And my BP is still very, very stable. The Blueprint newspaper this morning, 15 years after, 42.3 billion naira Abuja Lokoja Road still in progress. Story is on page 6 of the Blueprint newspaper this morning. Communities blame delay on indigenous contractors, say highway death trap, robbers and kidnappers den. It's tough and hellish plying the road, say motorists. Necessary approvals needed to get work completed, that's according to the contractor. Work 95% ready. December handover date feasible, ascribed to the federal government. And so many other stories right there, including this one: El Rufai battle ready as workers protests ground Kaduna. That story is on page 15 of the Blueprint newspaper this morning. Markwe.
Well, leadership is the next one here. Panic in Kaduna as residents stockpile food stuff. Yeah, you're wondering why that's as a result of an oncoming strike. You see the long queues at filling stations as a result of panic buying of fuel following the labor strike in Kaduna yesterday. Industrial action plunges state environs into darkness. Long queues at filling stations as Nupeng cuts fuel supply. NLC president ignores El Rufai's arrest threat. Talks tough. We're ready for you, governor tells Labour. Well, a lot is going on in Kaduna. Just yesterday, it was seen that all the unions are downing tools. What is going on? And will that really be the way to go? Well, you might want to read details on page 4 of the paper. You have a number of other stories here. Turaki, Dokwesi, others back southern governors on restructuring. So that story is also on the front page of Leadership. Let's leave it there for the paper.
Well, Abuja Inquirer is singing the same song on the same hymn page, so to speak, as the Leadership newspaper this morning. Kaduna government labor clash. Residents panic, seek truce. No going back on strike, says Labour. Blackout, water scarcity loom. Step foot in Kaduna and be arrested. State government warns Waba. Find the story on the front page, continues on the inside pages of the paper this morning. And very quickly look at the Nigerian News Direct. Liquidity squeeze. Banks, others borrow 4.4 trillion naira from CBN. and a number of other stories you'll find on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. Well, again, say that that's the most we can take of the papers this morning, and so many issues to look at. So we'll be back right after now to begin. Well, that title looks like something made for the rings this morning. But let's begin this conversation with the NLC's Vice President, who joins us virtually to speak about all of the issues that are necessary to resolve this. Amechi Asugoni joins us this morning. He's Vice President of the NLC. He joins us virtually. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mr. Asugoni. Well, clearly, as you have said, we have been hearing all kinds of reports, blackout looming, petrol stations queuing up. Even 3 unions working at the airport in Kaduna have already put out their own releases and saying that they are, aligning with the position of the NLC on this. A question to begin with this morning would be, have there been any consultations with this Kaduna State government on this issue before this morning?
Again, for record purposes, I am Comrade Amechi, the Deputy President of Nigeria Labour Congress. And then going to your question, we have written, complaints have been made at the state level. The headquarters of NSC have also done intervention letter writing to the government, expecting intervention that would have attracted dialogue in order to solving this problem. Unfortunately, the governor remained adamant, and there is no other process required than to compel him to do the lawful. And that is why NSC have to relocate to Kaduna in ensuring that workers' rights are not just swept under the carpet. So we're here on that ground, and we have made effort to attract meeting, but the state government is not actually heeding to the due process, and we believe there are also due process measures that will compel such adamant people to do the lawful. And we're not just here to talk. The essence of labor leaders relocating to Kaduna is to ensure that we don't allow this governor to set a precedent that eventually become a photocopy for the entire state.
But is it out of in your opinion, is it out of the purview of the government of Kaduna State to right-size its workforce? Because you say they didn't follow due process. What then is this due process if you believe it is within their rights to do whatever they need to do?
Yes, under the law, under the Labor Act, it is well specified that for you to carry out downsizing, called it redundancy, you must engage the trade union in order to discuss the reasons, the level at which the redundancy will get to, and measures for possibly paying those people eventually if the redundancy is justified. In this case, he arbitrarily commenced the redundancy exercise, removing over thousands of workers at the state level. As a matter of fact, our record proved that over 7,000 local government employee workers were sacked, over 1,710, if possible, primary healthcare workers were also sacked. He also further, as I speak with you now, about 20,000 workers in Kaduna have not received their April salary. This is the same governor that, as I talk now, 4 months past now, pensions have not received their pay. And we're talking about what he has just meted on workers. Nobody talks about the over 500 increment of tuition on students. And don't forget injury to one in victimization is injury to all, because people are watching, other employers are watching. So you did not follow due process to engage the trade union to discuss the reason, whatever, however fantastic is the reason of Erufai to have removed one person. The union needed to be put on notice. The union needed to be explained why and how and at what extent would this redundancy get to. He didn't, and he has continued to reduce workers, including making more plans to do so. And we can't fold our hands and watch him take law into his hands.
How does this activity compare with that of 2017, which your union also reacted negatively to?
Yes, it's the same pattern, and that injured the entire process, because in 2017, this same governor sacked over 21,000 workers, these state school teachers, and you remember he carried out competent tests, and under that guard, he sacked many of these workers, and as a matter of fact, he did so without also recourse to due process. That matter is still pending. As I speak with you, some affected workers are yet to get their pay, and we can't not just watch this governor wake up, act, and go out, get out with this. So for us, it's a perpetual act that must not continue. He has continued to perpetrate this unlawful and anti-workers act in Kaduna, and he make boast to other governors that nothing happens. And we are saying that is not true. That is not true. Yeah. Nigerian workers have a right, and we're here to exercise that right.
Is the NLC sympathetic to the position of government concerning its fiscal inabilities, that, they're doing this because there isn't enough money, to take care of these, workers? 84% of their of what they receive from the federal government, they say, according to the government, they spend on staff salaries. Is the NLC sympathetic to that?
NSC will only be sympathetic or pay attention to agenda that is brought before it during a formal meeting. As I speak with you, none of these reasons have been communicated to NSC. And we can't read it on paper, because I don't think governor has been employers talk to the employees through media means. He has refused to engage the workers' representative at the state level to explain to them reasons he has to do what he's doing. And there's no way we will allow this to continue, because it's not about what he's saying now. It's about the intention. The intention behind this act is beyond. Do you know that this same governor has gone ahead to unlawfully reverse the minimum wage for local government workers? And as I speak now, information has it, as of yesterday, that he has commenced payment of 18,000 rather than the new law. So what is for the interest of millions of the rest of the state? If he says if they want to see how they can survive the economy and they also better the life of other people, what now happened? How do you endanger the life of the majority by putting those working under threat or easing them out to the street, and then you put the entire state on at risk? The insecurity faced by Kaduna today cannot be managed by the governor, and he continues to sack these same workers. And it has been proven that employment is the best measure to control insecurity. And this same governor believes that when he sack them, he can get peace. That is not true. So we don't know where he's getting this anti-economic advice, because it does not add. Rather, it's putting the state in jeopardy. So we will help him to actually govern well. It's not doing right.
Well, when we spoke with the head of service in the Kaduna State government last week or thereabout, what we were told was that this activity of right-sizing, government's employees is not, especially at the local government level, is not something being done by the state government. It was being done in cahoot with the agencies that are overseeing local government, and that it's not something that the government is directly involved in. Are you having any conversations with the local government administrations, especially about this issue that concerns local government workers?
governor is directly involved. Governor Rufai is directly involved in all the actions to remove workers at the state level, whether at the local government level. He is overseeing all, and he has refused dialogue from all quarters. No agency of the state has contacted labor to explain nor do any form of engagement as to why the redundancy must continue. This is somebody who just believes that whatever he tells people, how can you take action in your bedroom and then you come to media to defend it? And that is why these laws were put in place to checkmate employers with this kind of act of impunity. Because when you see people who believe they can do anything and get out of it, then you must also engage the process that resists such rebellious act. Because you cannot just sack workers who are collective in making production and activities move for the state. So for you to remove workers from their duty posts, you have to explain to them that at this junction, we need to let you go for AY reason or for purposes of retirement. Workers must know why they will leave, because these people accepted their employment letter, acknowledging it to resume. And therefore, you must explain to them the reason for disengagement. You don't throw them out. There is dignity in labor, and that is why we cannot allow Erufai to casualize the workers of the state, because that is where he's driving to. He's not controlling costs. He's trying to see how they can use a consultant to downsize the workers and later engage people at a lower pay, when workers will come at individual level to sign personal contract with the state and therefore eliminate the power of coming together as workers. We cannot allow him to get to that extreme, because that will be very dangerous for himself, putting the state at risk. He can save himself today as a governor, but very soon he's going to return to his house as ordinary citizen of Kaduna, and another governor will also preside over him. So he must not lay a foundation that even him cannot live to advocate, to sustain. This same person that have joined NSC in protest against anti-labor in the past, and today now he's falling victim of same act. So we just have to remind him that he cannot allow to go this way, because this is democracy. People must contribute, and the opinion of labor counts when you talk about redundancy exercise. You can't do it arbitrarily because it's unlawful. And I think all the workers around him, advisors must not do to please him, but rather tell him the truth, so that he does not fall victim that eventually will penalize the entire state. Because he may not know the consequence that is before this action. It starts like this, but I know very well that there is no going back until he reverses those actions.
Malkwe has some questions for you, Comrade Asogoni. Malkwe.
Indeed, Comrade Amechi, I have a number of questions for you. First, I'd like to know, I mean, you say the leadership of the NLC is in Kaduna at the moment to oversee what is going on there. This is very instructive, because before now, I know that one of the things that the head of service, in an earlier interview we had with her, had made reference to is the fact that the local labor unions have been carried along and do not seem to be complaining, that it seems that they're hearing the voice of the leadership at the NLC at the national level louder than that of the local level. Do you have an explanation for this?
I think for clarity, that is just a method of division, more or less, to see how they can create a division among the United Forum of NSC. The question here is that the people at the local level have been crying. As a matter of fact, all that I've enumerated there here is just few out of all that they have been advocating. He has refused to hear them. As a matter of fact, during the May Day that they made plan to even use the assemblies of government, they refused them and they requested NSC to pay. So you should know that there is no relationship with labor at state level. We have just come to help to rescue these people, because the local one at this junction can no longer survive in the hand of Erufai. If there is a claim of such, let him not persuade the NSC chairman to speak in his favor. Because as I speak to you this morning, they're already on the road ensuring compliance. And nobody's forcing them, because they cried out before we assemble here. So there's no way we can compensate against their will. But again, when it concerns lawful acts, then NSC have no choice. No state even have the right to compromise nor join force with government to do unlawful. Whatever that is not lawful will be resisted. Whether the state like it or not, NSC is there to guide in ensuring that they don't also adopt a pattern that will affect other part of workers in Nigeria. So we are here collectively in accordance with the rules of engagement and also with the consent, full consent, willingly by the state, and they are deeply involved. They are deeply involved. They are bitter. They are
Okay.
bitter. That statement is false.
I'd like to confirm, because I were looking at the papers this morning, and there was a headline that read something to the effect that the NLC chairman, that's Mr. Comrade Ayuba Waba, wasn't welcome in the state. I don't know if you've seen that so far. Is there anything personal between the NLC chairman and the governor?
The NSC chairman of the state or the NSC president? Because you mentioned the president name now.
Indeed, the NLC president, beg your pardon.
Okay, the NSC president no, there's nothing like that. And I think NSC president is the president of the entire affiliate union to NSC, and I want to believe he arrived here gallantly yesterday. He was received by the state council of NSC. He addressed them, and this morning he's already set to lead the action. As to relationship with the governor, I don't think there is anything personal here, because I also don't see NSC president as making relationship that will hurt his people. There is no division. There is no division among us, and we are not too much interested in personal relationship with governor now, because what the NSC stand for, especially the president, is to see that under his leadership, no governor is allowed to actually carry far this act of impunity. So their personal relationship does not count at this level.
Okay, just clarifying there. But, I'm looking at a number of the reasons why the Kaduna state government claims that it is going ahead with this right sizing, they have called it. They claim that they cannot continue to use 84% to 96% of FAC receipts on personnel costs, because they believe that it will shortchange the majority of the state stakeholders and the people that they elected to serve. I do not know. I mean, you have said that the reason why you are going on strike is because labor has not been engaged before now. But looking at, because this particular memo did not just come out today. It came out way before now. I was wondering if Labour sought at the local level, at the state level, at the national level, if they sought any form of engagement with the state government before it got to this situation.
Yeah, I think we have continued to engage when the need arises, and especially when the atmosphere is created. We are available, as a matter of fact. This is not the first time this governor is engaging in this form of act. Don't forget the recent resisted bill, removal of minimum wage from the legislative list, was also sponsored by this same governor. So it is not for him to accept. It's for us to resist him to accept, because he has never believed that is wrong. And such persons, you don't take his word, rather you just do what is lawful until the law compel him to actually humble. For me, he did it by sponsoring the legislator that actually moved that bill. I don't know how much he paid him, but I think the majority of the House have also seen reason why that bill should not continue. So the same thing here. He has continued to advocate these evil practices against Nigerians here. And if you don't also come out this way, Nigerians may not even know what is happening here in Kaduna. As for engagement, we are open to dialogue. We are waiting for Amy Jenuko, official communication to NSC for a meeting where we avail ourselves. But until that is done, this action also continue. Even in the midst of engagement, I don't think there is anything that will stop this action, because the action is not meant to threaten him. It's meant to correct the abnormality.
Well, Comrade Asuguni, just hold on for a few seconds. We have the Commissioner for Local Government Affairs in Kaduna State joining us this morning in the meeting. Jafaru Sani, thanks for joining us this morning. I don't know if you want to begin by at least responding to some of the things that you have heard from the NLC this morning on the issue. Sonny, are you still there? If you don't mind, could you kindly unmute yourself so that, because we can't hear you, just unmute your microphone. Okay, well, so I don't know if you've heard all that Comrade Amechi Asuguni, the Deputy President of the NLC, have said so far. If you want to respond to some of them before we take on some new questions.
Yes, I would. At least thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to really very, very surprising. He was saying that there wasn't any prior engagement with the workers, especially in our part, the Nigerian Union of Local Government Employees. In fact, they have been. It's very strange for him to now appear on this platform to be spreading lies and falsehood. He was really not too sure about the number of workers laid. At some point, he mentioned 4,000. He says 7,000 later on, and then he was saying he thinks that the number is even higher than that. So this shows that this statement he's making is devoid of any evidence. The leadership of NLC that we know in the past, they are really very thorough. They take their time to ensure that they investigated before they now appear in public to make their claims. In this, what we did in the local government, with the local governments, is really in consideration with the issues on ground. Our local governments are really rural-based, with the dwindling fund receipts and the excessive, expenditure that they have been at least confronted with on a monthly basis. It's really very, very clear that all the stakeholders in the state are really unanimous to at least let us look again at the numbers. Monthly, the local governments combined, they paid about 3.6 billion naira as salaries, 411 million as a monthly pension. Then under the contributory pension scheme, they pay 60.7 million monthly, being the employer's contribution to those employees under the contributory pension scheme. We equally pay 35,439,000 monthly under the CBN Retirement Redemption Fund account. This fund, there is a deposit that is kept in the central bank to really address the issue of fast service benefits for these employees. So in the month of March, particularly, these local governments, collectively received from the federation account the sum of 3,610 million. I told you earlier on that 3.6 billion naira is for the payment of salaries. So what remained for them at that moment was just a meager 10 million naira to at least do a number of things constitutionally, assigned to the local government to perform on behalf of the people. So we felt that this is necessarily look at it, trying to, as much as possible, look at areas where we can try to at least reduce this burden. We have started this thing not now, but since 2018. Our workers were given, notice that they should go and upgrade their, qualifications by enrolling in tertiary institutions of their choice. In this, there is a fund set aside. That's 1% of the money coming to the local governments monthly, being set aside to really fund the training of this personnel. So they had the advantage of really taking, this window to go and update their studies, but they didn't.
Honorable Commissioner, just 1 second. There are some very interesting things that you have said now that I would like us to expatiate a little further on. But let's take that on when we return from this break. Comrade, well, just before we go back to the comrade, let's stick with the Commissioner for Local Government Affairs in Kaduna State for a few seconds, Jafaru Sani. Once again, thank you for joining us this morning. There are some figures you gave the other time, and you said that you began by saying that the NLC Deputy President doesn't have his figures correct. But the NLC Chairman in Kaduna State, in an interview with Channels Television, gave some figures that over 2,000 local government workers have been disengaged, 1,700 PHC have been disengaged, 4,000 SUBEB staff have been disengaged. So in all, over 7,000 local government workers and more than 11,000 Kaduna civil servants already penciled for disengagement. Are these figures correct, or you want to edit them as well?
Yes, they are obviously not correct. This is because when the chairman, the state NLC chairman, had the opportunity to meet with the head of service to get his rights, he decided to abstain from, the meeting. Fortunately, other unions operating in the state, the TUEC and others, NOLGE, etc., were there. They attended the meetings. They have these figures. We are happy now that they have decided to come down to Kaduna. There will be at least opportunity to really see exactly what is happening. When they kept saying that this administration is anti-workers, I don't know whether to laugh or to cry. Because on the record, honestly, this administration is one of the best in this country. Without prompting of the labor, the government started implementing, the 30,000 naira minimum wage for the staff in the state service and the local government since September 2019. Without prompting of the NSC, the minimum pension for pensioners in the state was raised from a meager 6,000 naira monthly to 30,000 naira. The bulk of these pensioners come from the 23 local government councils. We have been paying this since February 2020 without fail. Without prompting of the labor, this administration approved 6 months maternity leave for female married workers in the public service of the state. So you can see that taken along with other, improvements in service delivery, improvement in the working environment, we expected that labor should have been at least more circumspect in really doing what they are doing. We are modernizing the public service by employing professionals, for agencies, graduates with higher qualification, and that even ICT savvy are being recruited to man critical areas of service delivery. We have been training and retraining staff,
yes.
in the service.
Just one moment, Honorable Commissioner. But you're yet to clarify the figures. Just a moment. If you can just kindly clarify the figures that, are correct as opposed to the ones that you say that the NLC do not have correct. How many local government staff have been relieved of their jobs, in recent time? You haven't given us those figures. And how many are penciled for disengagement in the nearest future?
we have a total of 1,648. The NLC can obtain these figures from the NOLGI if they want, now that they are in Kaduna. We have, apart from those said, currently with the directors of personnel element, there are local chapters of the Nigerian Union of Local Government Employees, as well as the state union of that branch of labor. Because at the local government level, we at least relate directly with the NOLGI. The NOLGI chairman, in the past had really addressed the media to say that they really are in agreement with what was done.
Honorable Commissioner, my sincere apologies. Just 1 second. My sincere apologies. For reason of network or something, we couldn't quite hear the figures that you gave us earlier. Could you kindly state those figures again? How many people have been relieved and how many are penciled for removal from the civil service?
Yes, I said in our local government sector, the total of 1,648 workers have been disengaged. I said equally that the NLC, now that in Kaduna, they can confirm this figure from the NOLGI, who I equally mentioned that we have engagement because the exercise is over. This is a process that started from 2018. All the affected staff were given adequate notice to really go and study. They have, either PACE primary school level certificate or SSCE or other. In fact, there are many of them without even qualifications that we found on the payroll. We have tried our very best to ensure that we avail them the opportunity to really study. We have a fund in the local government system where 1% of the revenues of the local government is being set aside monthly to fund the training in long-term and in-service training for this personnel. Many had taken advantage of this and many others have not. When the NOLGI at the national level, interacted with the said chapter, they were told this, they were satisfied that yes, this staff have been given all the chance to really at least update their knowledge, but they have failed to do so. If you may recall, sir, local government sector has been variously, referred by, scholars and other stakeholders in local government administration as a den of ghost workers, as a welfare agency with an over-bloated staff force, a drain pipe of the resources for the local government that should have been, channeled to the construction, and implementation of programs and projects for the people. So we felt that to really put local governments on a very, very sound foundation, we need to really look at their structure, place them on the path to sustainable development if really we want our rural communities to transform. This is what we have doing, from 2015 when this administration came on board today. We have received a number of recommendations, and at some point in time, even from NLC itself, because of what the governor and the government has been doing. In fact, if we are to be very, very blunt, many people that have been hired by NLC to come and protest in Kaduna State this morning, in their states, they have never even started implementing the minimum wage, talk less of really at least paying the pension as to their paying. These states, in fact, including NLC, we learned that workers under NLC are about to engage on strike because they were paying them a minimum of 35,000 naira prior to the implementation of the increase. But now they are demanding that their minimum wage be raised to 50. But the NLC leadership has vehemently refused to implement, this demand of the workers, leading to the threat of strike by labor within the label itself. This shows that what he said, they are just saying it for the sake of publicity, which they have really gotten. Otherwise, I had expected to see NLC coming to Kaduna to congratulate the governor for at least the laudable programs that he is doing, he's implementing.
Well, Honorable Commissioner, yeah, my apologies, but you know, a good number of questions arise there. But let me begin from the fact, what you talked about, you know, concerning Norgay and all of that. The question a number of people will be asking you is, if the local government administrations were effective, how come it's the state government that is taking charge of the welfare of local government administrations, when the House of Assembly in Kaduna State is constitutionally responsible for oversight over the local governments?
Well, where the state government came in is in the issue of really trying to augment, you know, the local government's primary center to delivery to infant mortality administration. Meager funds available to these local governments. The state on monthly basis, you know, extend a helping hand to these local governments to pay 40% of the personnel costs of this category of workers. Incidentally, the most highly paid, you know, amongst the staff of the local governments. So by welfare, what we mean is that the local governments are operating under the state public service. So all the progressive policies and programs of this administration that are being implemented at the state level, the 23 local government chairmen, you know, felt obligated, being under the same All Progressive People's Congress, to really ensure that they implement them. We have been doing this without fail, as I mentioned earlier on, and local governments in Kaduna State, you know, are amongst the best in this part of the country. Go to Kano, go to Zamfara, go to Sokoto, Kebbi. The story is that they are yet to start paying this minimum wage. To mention that we have reversed, you know, the payment is a blatant lie. Again, they are in Kaduna. They now have the opportunity to really cross-check what I'm saying. The state has not reversed the 30,000 naira minimum wage. We are still paying it. We have paid it last week. We brought to the workers, I know, representing their April salaries, you know, and they have acknowledged that, yes, it is still 30,000 naira. What was done is just to look at the consequential increases and then try to ensure that we factor it to be at least on a sustainable manner, to be based on affordability of the local government. But the bottom line is that the minimum paid workers in the local government is still receiving 30,000 naira. It's a law. We don't trample over laws validly enacted by the relevant agencies, especially in Kaduna State. There were suggestions from some quarters and even stakeholders that we should revert to 18,000 naira, but collectively we said no, it's a law, it has come to stay. With little restructuring and adjustment, we can be able to really shoulder this responsibility of the payment of 30,000 naira, and then we continue to render services to the people as expected. So it's a very, very wicked lie for NLC to say that it's now 18,000. They have not really gotten their facts well. This shows that they have not been relating with us. We have a very open door policy. The head of service had fixed a date for a meeting with the NSC, but at the 11th hour, they decided to boycott the meeting, and then only for them to go and issue, advertisement, making serious allegations that are baseless and unfounded. dumbfounded. I am really very happy with the question you posed to
Commissioner
the Vice
Sani,
Chairman.
if I may come in, I mean, I have been
Yes.
listening to you, and I cannot but help, I cannot but help but feel that this strike could be prolonged from the language I have heard you use. For instance, you have alleged that the NLC has hired people to protest today. I do not know how you have confirmation of that. Do you have confirmation that the people who will be on the streets today will not be NLC people from the NLC unions? Commissioner Sani, can you hear me?
Yes, because they will not have the numbers that they require from Kaduna State, states, Yes, I hear you clearly. Hello? Hello?
Please go ahead.
Hello? Hello? Yes, because they cannot raise the number that they require from Kaduna State Public Service, just like they did in 2017, they now resorted to really writing letters of invitation to unions from sister states that unfortunately are not even paying the minimum wage. But practically they are now part of what they call procession to really bring down, the business of governance in Kaduna State for their selfish reasons. This is really very, very unfortunate, but branches, they told us that I asked to really come and join them. Just here from Lagos, most of them have left. That's the national leadership of the North. They invited them. When they came and interacted with the local chapter, they left, saying that they never knew that really the situations were not as painted by the NLC. So when you ask the vice chairman whether there is this personal, problem between their leadership and the governor of Kaduna State, honestly, I was happy. I was waiting for him to really let the cat out of the dog by telling the obvious. Otherwise, how can they not really rioted or protested in states that are not implementing the minimum wage, only to come to Kaduna, where in fact, we are among the first three to start payment since 2019. And since then, we have never looked back. For somebody again to say that we cancel 11,000 orders is a lie. Yesterday, we have please issued a press release that has been widely received by members of the media, explaining that we are yet to even ascertain the numbers. Certainly, there are some essential, adjustment and restructuring that is taking place, and we are doing all this within the ambit of the law.
This is taking the Kaduna State government a while, considering the fact that they issued this memo, way before now. You keep saying we don't know the number of people that are going to be affected. Some people will say it's because you're dodging and you're not willing to, state very clearly the number of people who are going to be affected by this, because they could be a lot. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, Labour has listed, it would seem that from everything that has transpired on this program, it is very clear that the relationship between Labour in the state and the government is not very warm. It's not very cordial, if it's cordial at all. There are questions as to how you have been relating with Labour, because now you're looking at them going on strike. The number of unions who have agreed to participate in this, we're seeing the National Union of Electricity Employees, National Union of Food and Beverage and Tobacco Employees, National Union of Teachers, Amalgamated Union of Public Corporations, Civil Service, Technical and Recreational Services, National Union of Railway Workers, Labour Congress in Kaduna there, National Union of Banks, Insurance and Financial Institution Employees. We're also hearing that Nupeng is also, a part of the strike. I mean, it looks like they're about to ground Kaduna State. If only one union has said, oh, it doesn't look like this, and all the other unions are saying we're were in with Labour on this, aren't there huge questions as to how your government has handled this particular misunderstanding with Labour?
I know it came to us as a surprise. You know, the vice chair, while
Commissioner Sani, if you can hear me, please go on. You say it came to you as a surprise. What precisely came as a surprise?
Okay. Well, it seems that we do not have the commissioner any longer. I was just hoping that on responding to that question, we'd also be able to...
that an injury to one is an injury to all.
Yes. Go ahead, Commissioner. Go ahead, we can hear you.
Yes, they have this that an injury to one is an injury to all of them. So most of the associations are mentioned that in the private sector. They equally are not aware of what is happening in Kaduna State, except what the NSC told them, which is really a lot of misinformation and poor, evidence, gathering at the local level. Okay. Our state branches, but in Kaduna State. So we are surprised too that at least they are coming together like this. But that does not mean that we don't have any good relationship.
Okay, very quick one. Very quick one. Yeah, Honorable Commissioner, very quick one. Since you have a good relationship with Labour, is there a plan to call a meeting within the shortest possible time so as to avert the effect of this strike?
We have been meeting with the Labour, especially, as I mentioned earlier, those operating in the state government. The head of service had, while appearing on this program, told you that she also had been engaging with most of them, but she had a position, to what they are trying to do in Kaduna. Perhaps maybe we don't really understand. Maybe politics, maybe other reasons that is based on to them.
Just to be clear, Commissioner Sani, just to be clear, which persons which arm of Labour are you meeting with? Is it the NLC chairman in Kaduna or an affiliate of NLC? Which union specifically is the government interfacing with?
We are interfacing and have interfaced with the Trade Union Congress, the Association of Medical and Health Workers Union, the National Union of Local NLC, and if they have a very clear communication channel between them, they should be able to really relate and interact to find out what actually is happening.
Okay.
For NLC, as they deliberately refused to honor the invitation of the head of service to meet on this issue, but rather decided to really issue advertisement, telling that the head of service had.
All right then. Yes. We thank you very much for your time and perspectives this morning. Jafaru Sani is Commissioner for Local Government Affairs in Kaduna State. Thank you so much for your time and thoughts. Well, Deputy President of the NLC, Amechi Asogoni, is still with us this morning. You want to quickly respond to some of the things that you have heard? Specifically the fact that government has been interfacing with certain members of the certain affiliates of the NLC, and that the NLC was invited to a meeting with the head of service, but deliberately did not honor the invitation.
I think I don't want to actually miss word with him, because training differs. And when you see employers talk at this level of militant background, then you will know very well that like father, like son. So needless to engage on some of the things they pointed, but I would emphasize clearly that as we speak, there is no formal invitation from government that actually would, when Mr. stated that statement that NSC declined. Possibly in the past, something would have happened that made somebody not to meet up a meeting engagement. That does not shut the door of engagement. Imagine him say that some of the languages used that whatever we are doing is for selfish and all the rest. Can the employer talk that way to trade union? Can the employer address workers in that manner? If truly you say, we're talking about decent work. Decent work is an obligation. It is not about what the governor is doing. It's about how he's doing it.
Just one second. He also said that it is not true that the state government has reversed the minimum wage from 30,000 naira to 18,000 naira. Do you have any proof that that is the case?
No, I thank God for that open statement. And you also heard him adopted that those suggestions were on the table. That's the same man that says suggestions were on the table.
But he also said that they already agreed that because it is a law, they are not going back on that law, that the government will continue to pay 30,000 naira if it was suggested to them, but they said no. That's what he just said.
If he's making a false claim to call it suggestion, that was their earlier decision. And possibly that they know cannot fly at all. They have just, how can he be referring to some people have received money a few days ago or so? Was it the time to pay April salary? Was few days ago the time to pay April salary? They have just corrected the abnormality they adopted in their system. And I thank God for that plus, because that justifies our claim. That actually these are issues bordering on Kaduna workers. And for me, the existence of a right of workers does not reside here in Kaduna. It's a matter of, it's a global practice. Best practice is known all over the world. And Kaduna cannot be exceptional. We are talking about the rules of engagement. Our people must be engaged. You have to tell workers the reason and the extent of redundancy before you carry it out. You can't single local government out and you speak otherwise. The leadership of local government workers is here in Kaduna to lead local government workers on this strike. And you agree with me, it's a total action.
Well, we have to thank you very much for your time and just, pray that this does not get things worse for the very people that you are trying to defend. Comrade Amechi Asugune is Deputy President of the NLC. Thank you so much for your time and thoughts this morning.
Well, almost all the fans of Sunrise Daily know that I'm pretty reluctant to talk about 2023 in 2021. But if we know anything about politicians, we know that they already started thinking about 2023 the day that the 2019 elections were concluded. And so we have a situation whereby it would seem that electioneering or moves towards the next elections already started way before even governance for the next 4 years could even be talked about. But this is where we are now. We cannot pretend about it anymore. 2023 and the jugglings around it is already upon us, even though we're still in 2021. But if 2023 is going to happen, as it will happen, by the special grace of God, even though there's been a lot of talk around the security situation in the country as a result of all that has been happening, and people are afraid of what could happen in 2023, how is it going to happen? What are the key changes that must be made to ensure that the process that we have continues to get better and not get flawed? Well, one of them is what you just heard the INEC chairman talk about. It's talking about creating new polling units so that we can decongest the current polling units that we have. In times past, it's been controversial, but it would seem that now it has gone down without too much of a controversy, but maybe I'm speaking too early. We also have people, stakeholders, who have been speaking very clearly about what they expect should happen in 2023 and have also written a letter to the INEC chairman to to, to recommend what they think should happen. One of them is architect Ayetoro, who is the Director General of Nigeria First Project, and he joins us this morning. Mr. Ayetoro, it's good to see you on our show.
Always a pleasure to be on Channels. Thanks for having me.
Well, you have written a letter to the INEC chairman ahead of the 2023 elections, which is still at least 2 years away. Isn't that too early?
No, not at all. If anything, I think we are so much behind time. When you know what election is all about, you realize that time is everything about elections. Time for you to make the necessary preparations, time for you to wake the people to new realities, you to let people understand whatever steps have been put in place, to the end that a year before the elections, people know what they are doing, they know where they are going, they understand what it's all about, they know the roles of every player, they understand the rules of the game, and they prepare accordingly. There are people who would not want to be part of a process because they don't believe in the integrity, but there are certain things they would see put in place and they were like, this makes sense. So this issue of, the black sheep at night, where everybody is looking for the sheep that is just tied next to them, and then suddenly the light comes on and they're like, oh, this is the sheep. I mean, the light should have come on all along, and all the time that would have been wasted in looking for the black sheep would have been avoided. I think that 2023 is late already, but the next best day to start is today.
I'm looking at the details of the letter that you wrote to the INEC chairman, something about making key changes ahead of 2023. And I'm wondering how you expect him to, respond to this letter. You've talked about the compromise of INEC staff. You're wondering if anything is going to be done about it. Some people are willing to compromise their integrity to just for money, for monetary rewards. And it would seem that the rewards oftentimes are really mouth-watering. Should we be talking to INEC staff, or should we be talking to the people, the politicians who actually make this sometimes irresistible offers?
Two things. The very first thing is that we have not really come to appreciate what election is all about, what governance is all about. We seem to have accepted this very terrible situation that, well, some people come, offer us some stuff, we give them the vote, they go and run the show. We are so detached, and we don't realize that the next most important institution after God is government. Government runs our lives. Government determines everything that we do. Today, government can decide to ban every form of electronic media. Today, government can decide that every Friday you must wear tie wrapper as a man. You cannot wear trouser in Nigeria on Fridays in Nigeria. Government can decide almost anything about your life. And for such an important institution, we need to have a mindset reset to look at it again, interrogate the processes of getting the people there. I just gave this little illustration. Imagine that your child is to be sent to school and you put the child in a bus. And then somebody comes to whisper in your ears and says, the driver of that bus has a problem. He doesn't see well. The next thing you do is rush to that bus and yank your child off because you're not going to take such a risk. And yet government is the vehicle that carries all of us. And we do not take time to interrogate the processes of the drivers of that vehicle. So to that extent, the political process has been so commercialized that talking to the man who is getting there for profit doesn't make much sense. If anything, we need to talk to Nigerian citizens, and then we also talk to the managers of the processes. I happen to have a personal relationship, I'd said that in that letter, with the national chairman of INEC, and he bought my loyalty and my respect the very first day I met him. I was the national chairman of a party, and that was the first address he was making to IPAC, and I was there as a national chairman. And the first thing he said is that I would like certain powers to be taken from me because I don't have the capacity to effectively exercise such powers relating to prosecution of electoral crimes. And it was rare for a Nigerian to say, take some powers away from me so I can concentrate on my core. This as far back as about 2015, 2016, you know? And I loved it that I could see a man who wants to get things done as opposed to a country where everybody's looking for powers and powers and powers. Even what they cannot do, they say, doesn't matter, just give me the powers, as situated in the presidency. The things that Mr. President should say, look, send this out, this issue of a exclusive list, send this out to the states, give them the money so I can concentrate on what matters. But the presidency wants to control the healthcare in my village to micromanage this process. It doesn't make sense. So INEC chairman is somebody I know I can talk to, and when he listens and sees superior argument, he will take certain processes and then we will back up that process, because like sending anything to the National Assembly, as individuals, we can't do it, but we can encourage him to send in such a bill, executive bill, so to speak, and then we as civil society, as individuals, we can back him to make sure that the processes have the integrity that will stand the test of time.
I'm looking at your comments on the party, because you divide your statements into points, and I think the party takes a really huge chunk of the conversation there. I'm looking at this one where you say that, he shouldn't deregister party, even though you talk about how the parties have become business ventures, so to speak, and that sometimes some parties, or many times, some parties are created just to make money off the election process by negotiating with other parties, other bigger parties, and going home afterwards, not being serious about the process. Yet you say INEC do not deregister the political parties. Instead, make the demands more stringent so that you can sift wheat from chaff. I'm wondering how feasible. Do you really think that INEC has the time for all of that? For an institution that is saying, take away powers from me, let me just concentrate on, focusing, let me concentrate on the process itself rather than, prosecution. Do you really think that INEC will be able to go through this very elaborate and complicated process which you have stated here to sift wheat from chaff?
Thank you for that very, very important question. We must realize what government is. Government is not a fast food center. Government is a long-haul project. Government, this mentality of the military of here and now, we must come to sit down and interrogate it. The processes leading to fair, credible elections are such that you don't ask me if I have the time. They are foundational. They are fundamental. There are things that are inevitable, what you may call the inevitable concomitants. There are things that you cannot do without. One of them is, how do I have an electoral process that is sustainable? That's why I'm so upset with the National Assembly that 2 years to election, 2 years from the last election, we're not saying anything about the electoral bill. We're not saying, we're just, okay, we will. And they want to just wait until that last moment and they start to rush like it happened the last time. And the president will say, it's too close to election, we can't do it. Why can't we just think in terms of doing things right foundationally? Going back to what I said, now, if 10 years down the line, there's such amazing, free, fair, credible elections in Nigeria, and people say, how did it happen? And they said, in the year 2020, there was an INEC chairman that came in and said, we have 91 political parties. That is too much on the ballot. That's too much. That's confusing. I would like to have just 20 maximum. How do I do that? I'll tell you what I'll do. Number one, I'm going to ask all political parties to register their members. It's going to, parties is serious business. Every party is government, either in power or in waiting. And for you to be government, you must be organized, you must understand your process, and you must do things properly. And for you to do that, I'm going to say 91 political parties, no problem. I'm going to have a midterm election, what I call midterm election, which is like 2 years to the elections. I'm going to ask you to have your membership in 3 categories. Category A is members with PVC who have paid their membership dues. These are financially active members. Category B is going to be members with PVC who do not subscribe to the dues of the party. Number 3 is maybe junior members. If you don't have PVC or you're a junior, those are people that we are training to become like party members. So midterm, category A, members with PVC, whom I have your database, because INEC must custody this. I'm going to ask all of you on the 20th of this month to do a voting between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. on which parties should be on the ballot. And I'm going to take the top 20. Now, this process is very transparent, and because it's not just one or two, people are going to be more relaxed, and they mobilize their members and say, you've got to vote, we must be on the ballot. Now, by the time you don't spend a dime. INEC does not spend a penny because the infrastructure is already there. So at the end of that day, the result is shown. All the chairmen, they know, well, these are the parties that are going to be on the ballot. As a result of that, you have to prepare yourself. Now, you do not deregister the others. You tell them to go to town against the next election cycle so that the parties keep mobilizing, the parties keep getting stronger, the competition becomes, more transparent, and party politics becomes more robust. But by the time you deregister all these people, look at what happened in 2019. I was a major player because I contested. A man like, let me be specific, Andy Uba, he was denied ticket on the big platforms. He went to YPP. He took that because he knew he was popular. He knew that he connected with the people. He knew that there's a difference between primaries and main election, and that he needed a ticket. He got the ticket and he won a senatorial seat. That's instructive. Assuming there were just 5 parties, come to Akwa Ibom, for instance, we were 45 parties that registered. Out of the 45, only 4 of us got to the ballot. Only 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 got to the ballot. The other 41 endorsed, and for the endorsement, they were handsomely rewarded. So this process has to be such that you use, technology to sift the wheat from the chaff. And it's a process that we have, undertaken a lot of integrity tests because we have a very robust, political machinery that cuts across, and we interrogate all these processes. And it was really, really interrogated before we now forwarded it to the national chairman of INEC to take a good look at.
Well, I thank you for all the comments that you've made. My concern is for 2 constituencies. Yes. The young population, which you know very well, and have already, you have a personal policy on that one, of transferring, to the youth, so to speak. Yeah, transferring responsibility to the youth. There, about 70%, 60-70% of the voting population in the country. I'm concerned about how we are even engaging them or even factoring them into our conversations, in all of these that we're talking about. The second that I'm concerned with is the local government level. So in improving the electoral process ahead of 2023, how do you see us machinating these 2 constituencies into mainstream? Because it would seem like unless you do that, we're just going to scratch the surface of solutions.
Thanks. That's a very wonderful question as well, Ayo. But the question is, did I call you Ayo? But the question is, how do we enlighten the youth to understand what government is all about? There's a major disconnect between the youth and government and governance. That's the biggest challenge I've had. And I've tried everything as an individual to let the young people know that government is not just that stuff that is detached and they just come once in a while to give you some money and then run away. Government is about your future, and this is your time. I said something on Twitter that really went viral. I said that children are leaders of tomorrow. Youths are leaders of today. At 21, I was a youth. I'd gotten my first degree. At 23, I was a youth. I'd gotten my master's. At 25, I had married. At 31, I'd had my 3 children. And you call me a father, a youth? At 37, I became the first Nigerian that got the shelter and free facility for any state government in this country. At 37. And you call me a leader of tomorrow? It doesn't make sense. Our youth are the leaders of today. So we need to enlighten them. And the more we enlighten them, the more that they see the light and get involved in a political processes. That's why I talk about responsibility transfer to the youth. I don't talk about power transfer. No, because governance is responsibility. Governance is power. It's not power. Governance is not power. Governance is primarily responsibility. Because if you look at the marching order of government or governance, it's encapsulated, well captured in our constitution. In chapter 2, section 14, subsection 2b, it says clearly that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. This primary purpose of government has been lost. And as a result, government has become a monetized enterprise. So we are enlightening the youth. We are talking to the youth. We are engaging the youth. And the more we do, the more enlightened they are. And they discover this is really serious business, number one. Number two, this is really our time. So what we need to do in answering your question directly is massive enlightenment of the youth. And they are responding. I can tell you that for a fact.
So you have said, you have acknowledged the fact that the INEC chairman is your personal, you have a personal relationship with him. With this letter that you have written, one, what sort of response are you hoping to get? And are you confident that, some significant changes will be made as we, head towards 2023?
Let me say 2 things. The very first thing is that I was pleasantly surprised when he went for his confirmation and he said, I want full electronic voting. It took so much courage. The reason is that, with all due respect to a lot of very good, responsible, mature, proper people in the National Assembly, I will say this with every sense of responsibility again, that over 50, 60, 70% of the people that are there will not be there if you have free, fair, credible elections. As a result, because of what you may call, the concept of self-preservation, to what extent are they willing to alter those laws? I'm telling you that INEC chairman must not be a lone voice in the wilderness. We must rise up as a people and give him that audacity, give him that backbone. Let him not be like him talking alone. Something happened in, when Governor Atta was he was a governor, and he was talking about, this resource control. And Mr. President then said he was just talking alone. I launched a program where Akwa Ibomites from all walks of life, across party politics and everything, came and said, no, he's speaking for us, he's speaking for us, he's speaking for us. And that gave him the impetus to march on, knowing that he was not a lone voice. The INEC chairman must not be a lone voice. And I'm very happy with Yaga Africa, CDC, and the Nigeria First that are coming up, the ANC fronts that are coming up and giving him all the muscles that is needed. Unless there is that electoral act that is passed, or electoral bill is passed into an act, senators said within the first half of this year, it was the first quarter, they moved it to the first half. Trust me, it's not going to move beyond that, because the latest by June, July, we must have a document, a working document that gives legal backing to electoral processes being completely what's the word, run on electronic basis. Once that is done, if not so, once there is no law that gives that legal backing, you discover that you go to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court will throw your case away. So good people are still worried about stepping into the political circle. But the moment that they give teeth by legal backing to electronic transmission of results, you will see what will happen. And this is one thing that the president must do for us.
Well, we have to thank you so much for sharing your thoughts this morning. We also will be looking forward to seeing what significant changes will happen, even as we wait on the National Assembly to consider very strongly the Electoral Act and to see whether or not, electronic voting will be implemented or be included, as a lot of Nigerians are clamoring for.
It will be.
Ezekiel Ayetoro, thank you for your time this morning.
It will be. Thank you for having me.
Well, we have seen some of your mails and cannot wait to take them. Honorable Ademola Alalade is talking about the 2023 elections. He says, if INEC must get it right for the 2023 general election, they must be thinking of doing things differently. 3 things I can suggest. INEC must not be compromised. The card readers must be working properly, and the electorate need to be properly sensitized.
Simple as those ones sounds, it's quite a lot of work. Hope is interested in the previous conversation. The security situation in Kaduna is already precarious. A statewide strike will only aggravate the crisis. KDSG, as Kaduna State government, should call the unions to a quick meeting and end the strike. Our government is obliged to give hope.
And it was who I thought it was. Is Professor Hope Egaga. Yeah, my former lecturer. Look at this from Olagunju, and he's saying NLC versus KDSG. We all know strikes cause unrest, whilst there's a possibility government might attack the right to strike. Also, NLC should look into the qualification capacity of their members.
Simple as that sounds again.
Trying to balance the equation here.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, even that, capacity of the workers themselves. Professor Nakana is saying local governments will never effect the emancipation of the people economically if our political emperors in the state work at cross purposes with the host at the center. The drafters of the Constitution mismanaged opportunities given them to draw up an impeccable document.
And this is from Sunday Musa, talking about the Ilaje seashore danger. He says, in 2011, I was part of a company engaged by the NDDC to do the shoreline protection, environmental impact assessment. Recommendations on what to do were given. Companies were engaged in dredging, etc. of that area. The government and its parastatals have failed the people of Ayetoro, Ondo State. Well, they still have time to remedy the situation because the people are still crying for help. It means that they still have hope that things can be done. So let's not leave it at that, Sunday. We're hoping that, maybe you'll be able to make reports of that finding you had public, who knows. And let us hope that other people who are concerned about the situation, who can take action on Ayetoro, will also speak up on the matter. Well, thank you so much for sending in your mails and comments this morning. It's been a pleasure having you with us. And it's been a pleasure serving you as well. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day and please remain safe.